Well, if you were with me earlier on, you would have seen that the day was considerably greyer. It has brightened up an awful lot, but with those winds have veered around in a southerly direction and they're blowing the tide on shore now, and that is a significant concern here for later on. On a broader scale across the Cork and Kerry region, we have the island of Cove, Great Island in Cork is cut off now because of the road. There are a number of trees down there and that is blocking that road and access to Cove at the moment. The N71 between Left and Skibbereen. There are around a dozen trees down on that road at the moment, and that road is blocked too. A number of roofs have been taken off homes and premises in Kinsale, at Ardcullen and Hollyhill in Cork, of an unoccupied caravan at Spring Lane near Mayfield in Cork City. The N25, that's the dual carriageway connecting Middleton with Cork City, that is closed westbound between Middleton and Little Island because there are a number of trees down there and there's an oil spill there as well. The roof has been blown off the Coast Guard station at Skull in West Cork, and a number of yachts are dragging their anchor at Crosshaven in West Cork. And all of those incidents, Suna, they will all have to wait until later in the day at the very least, until the wind abates, along with all of the dozens and dozens of faults that we have with fallen trees down on tower cables. They will all have to wait for repair and for removal of those trees later in the day.
Okay, Pascal, thank you for that. Now for an update of what's happening in the northwest, our correspondent Eileen Magner is in our Sligo studio. Eileen, how are conditions in Donegal, Sligo and Leitrim?
It's been quite a dark morning, Una, and we've had some rain and winds, but it's not expected to hit up here until later this afternoon. Nonetheless, people are really heeding the advice and battening down the hatches, literally, and streets are becoming quite eerily quiet. Most businesses have shut down and they've asked people to work from home. It was described as some shops like a Christmas Eve with people running in and buying stuff. So you have shops, you have banks, you have grocery stores, restaurants, bars, all closed across Donegal, Sligo, Leitrim. As of now, all the county council non-essential services in the region have closed down. That's libraries and offices. But obviously the councils are working hard behind the scenes. They have their emergency services on standby just in case something happens, and they will be called out. Transport obviously affected in the region in anticipation of the weather. The Harry Blaney Bridge across Mulborough Bay has been closed in Donegal. There are no ferries to Tory Island today. There are 2 services which run to Arranmore Island. The fast ferry says its last one will be at 2:30, and the other ferry service says it most likely will have to cancel its services later on today. And then a couple of private coach services are also curtailing their services. Busfeeda has cancelled its service this evening between Donegal and Galway, and also McGinley coaches have curtailed their service with Dublin. The only consolation, I suppose, is that we're being told the storm will have eased a bit by the time it hits this region. Nonetheless, people are being warned, don't take any chances and stay indoors.
Okay, thanks, Eileen. The Taoiseach and some of his ministers were briefed by the National Coordination Group at its headquarters in Dublin this morning. They repeated the call to stay indoors during this unprecedented weather.
As Storm Ophelia headed towards our shores this morning, the National Emergency Coordination Group gathered in Dublin to monitor the situation.
We believe that the storm presents potential life-threatening situations, and we have been asking people to take heed of the safety advice we're giving, and we think our assessment is that to a very significant extent people have been responding to the message.
Taoiseach Leo Varadkar was joined by a number of ministers and officials from the Defence Forces, Gardaí, ESB, Coast Guard and Transport Networks.
Houston, we've already seen the last trains go. That'll be until further notice. What we're doing then is we'll be, when the worst of the storm passes through, we'll be sending locomotives out with train crews on board, with maintenance crews on board, so we can clear the lines, we can assess if there are trees fallen, and ensure that it is safe to resume services.
Cork and Kerry have already experienced severe weather conditions. The remainder of the country is bracing itself.
My department have been working with the local authorities and with the voluntary sector over the weekend. We've had to get them into safe accommodation so that they can have safety and security during this storm as it passes over the country. So good work has been done there with those voluntary sectors. We'll be keeping facilities open as long as we have to. We'll be opening emergency facilities early today to make sure people can get in early as well, and no one will be forced out of any accommodation while the storm continues.
The National Emergency Coordination Group is stressing the need to stay indoors and stay safe.
Speaking earlier this morning from the Emergency Coordination Centre, the Taoiseach Leo Varadkar issued the following advice.
Essentially, we're asking people to take three, or rather four, important pieces of advice. The first is to stay indoors, wherever you are, until the storm has passed. To check on your neighbours and elderly relatives, particularly those living alone. To bear in mind that while in some parts of the country the storm is not yet that bad, it is coming your way, and this is a national red alert. It applies to all cities, all counties and all areas. The question that arises now is for people to stay where they are. So some people can work from home. Other people are in work already. People should stay where they are. They should stay indoors until the storm passes, whether that's in work, in their home or some other home. I do have a concern, though, that people may believe that the storm isn't going to be as bad as perhaps predicted. That, of course, is a possibility. We may be here tomorrow, relieved that the damage is less than we thought, but we can't operate on that basis. So I don't want anyone to think this is anything other than a national emergency and a red alert in all counties, all cities, all areas.
The Taoiseach speaking a short time ago. Well, Diane Connor was at that briefing and joins us now. Diane, what is the Emergency Committee planned for this afternoon?
Well, it's been very busy here over the past hour with a number of briefings from various organisations and departments who attended that meeting. They're planning to meet again at 2 o'clock. They'll be meeting in this room here beside me, and again various organisations and departments will be taking part in that meeting and monitoring the situation as the storm moves through the country. Met Éireann will be giving updates on the weather situation. We're expecting a briefing to be held here again around 4 o'clock, and then another meeting will be held here again at 7 o'clock this evening, when it's probably going to be more clear how the country has been affected by this storm, as it has, by that stage, will have come through most of the country.
Diane, thank you. And Jerry Murphy of Met Éireann is with us in studio. Jerry, what stage is Storm Ophelia at now?
Well, Storm Ophelia is it's still very strong, and it's moving up along the west Kerry coast at the moment. So that means that the strongest winds are still coming from the south. They're a southerly direction, and they're still affecting mainly Munster, South Leinster. And we've had reports of some very strong winds. The latest wind report from Roach's Point in County Cork, that's on the coast, that gave us a mean speed of 110 kilometres per hour. That's 60 knots. That's just a couple of knots shy of actual hurricane force. And a gust of 84 knots, that's 155 kilometres per hour. So along the south coast there are some very, very strong winds. And in general, the wind is still very strong across Munster, South Leinster. Now, as the storm pushes further north, we will see the winds in Munster and much of Munster easing, but they'll still stay very strong in the southeast. And then the stronger winds during the afternoon will occur as we go up through the Midlands, on up towards the northern half of the country at that stage. And there is one other factor, which is there is around mid-afternoon, mid to late afternoon, there will be a very strong southwesterly wind developing off the west coast, the West Connaught coast, and that is likely to bring some significantly strong winds with severe gusts, especially to parts of the Galway Bay area, Clare and Galway Bay, and perhaps a little bit further up on the Connaught coast as well.
And is flooding a significant worry? Is high tide expected to coincide with any of those winds?
High tide, there will be a high tide in the west at about mid-afternoon, so there is the potential for some flooding. But it's mainly a windstorm, though certainly a storm surge is possible along the west coast in the mid to late afternoon. But the major factor is the wind.
And when will it clear?
It is going to move on to the northwest then this evening and tonight. As it does so, the winds over the northern half, up over in parts of County Donegal, County Derry, very strong at the coast, but not quite as strong in inland areas as they are further south. And it will gradually clear away then tonight, and later on in the night then we'll see the winds beginning to ease.
Okay, Jerry. Thank you for joining us. Now, around 200,000 customers are now without electricity because of wind damage caused by the approach of Storm Ophelia.